Hello, 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 everybody. Listen, it is Friday, September. I got that right. The 6th. And we are live. We are live on both Facebook and YouTube. So please like, click, and share. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. Then Joy will introduce herself and we'll introduce our lovely guests. Okay. I am Keisha. I am one half of the host of the Regal Mindset podcast show. And Joy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I am Joy, the coach. I am your millionaire, your mystic, and your mindset transformer. And I'm so excited about tonight. Like we've been waiting all week for this.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
we want to give Tess all the room for all the good mess that we're
Yeah.
about to experience today.
Well, wonderful. So, Altess, welcome to the Regal Mindset podcast show. Thank you so much again for accepting the invitation and spending some of your Friday with us tonight. We got a lot of stuff we want to talk to you about.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for having me on. Listen, when I got the invitation, I said, me? I love that. I was like,
Oh,
okay.
Why not you?
right.
No, look, if not me, then whom?
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
Okay.
it.
There we
Period.
go. There we go. Well, listen, so I saw you. Let me give a little bit of background for everybody who's watching. I saw you on TikTok live, right?
hmm
And I stopped to listen to what you were talking about. And what I loved about your live is that you were so authentic, you were so transparent, and you were just talking and engaging with everybody that was on the live and explaining, the things that had happened to you. I think there was some issue with your room or something. You had gotten that cleared up, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I immediately reached out and said, "Hey, do you mind coming on a podcast show?" And then I went into your DM. So that's
Period.
how this got started.
hmm
You
But
slid into her DM.
I slid in
Sure
the
Hey,
did.
DMs.
hey, you better slide.
Look, but you see, I answer. I didn't even care. I barely read the message. You saw I answered. I said, let
Listen,
me hurry up.
it was the slide for me. Go ahead.
So listen, tonight we're going to dive into some politics. We're going to talk about pride. We're going to talk about the progress or lack thereof, if that's our opinion, in today's military, right? So you are actually an active duty member, correct?
So I am on active duty at the current moment.
Okay.
I will go back into the reserves shortly at the end of the year, we can safely say.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Well,
hmm
thank you for your service. Right.
Thank you for yours.
Absolutely. I am also a Navy veteran, and we've got Veterans Day coming up here in November. Thank you all.
Well,
But
listen, thank y'all for your service. I'm not skinny enough for it, but it's fine.
that's okay though. So listen, Tess, let's just start it off, right?
hmm
So tell us who you are, how you arrived at deciding or making the determination that you wanted to serve, and what that journey was. What was your childhood like? Tell us who you are.
Oh, so well, me as a person, I've always been, I guess the same story. Like I always like to say my story isn't unique because it's really not. I live that same shared experience of most trans people kind of growing up, having that gender dysphoria, that body dysmorphia kind of feeling growing up, the incongruency, except I just kind of still excelled no matter what. And I kind of just put it on the back burner. And my father is a plumber by trade. He
Mhm.
works for the city of Daytona Beach. He's great.
Florida.
And, like a manly man, if you will. So
Okay.
I had that figure. All my uncles are, manly men and such what. So I always aspired to be just like them, but no, none of them had ever joined the military. They're all from, small Daytona Beach. So they never got out except one of my uncles. He joined the army and he was a helicopter mechanic, just like how I became a helicopter mechanic.
Okay.
So initially, I was a freshman at Bethune-Cookman University, and I ran out
I
of
love
money
that.
to fund school.
Come on,
And I
Bethune
was,
Cookman.
look, I was like,
I'm
dang,
from Jacksonville, so I know
oh,
all.
okay, come on, Jacksonville.
Yeah,
Period. Look, Duval, I can't do it right, but Duval.
Duval.
That was a
But yeah,
moment.
I couldn't afford school anymore. So I just kind of came to the conclusion. I had already tried to go into the Marine Corps out of high school, and I kind of gave up on that dream. So I said, well, what about the Air Force? Because I came out of the Marine recruiter, and the Air Force recruiter looked at me and she's like, no, what are you in that office for? Come over here. So then I went over there. I talked to her. She sent me to a recruiter down here at Patrick Space Force Base now, and the rest is history.
Oh man.
That's
So
Hmm
how
good.
many
And
years have you been serving?
it is on September 27th. It'll be 11 years.
Oh
Wow.
wow. That's
Hmm
amazing. Yeah. Okay.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. Would you, 11 years, then that means that you were in probably towards the end of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Is that right?
Yes, so I am on the very end of that. So my sophomore year, they have you take the ASVAB and such what. So I took the ASVAB and I scored at 80 something. And of course, you go talk to the recruiter after that because you even 2 years out, they can kind of put you out
Right.
and say this is a prospective person. The recruiter, because I circled it, I don't know if y'all remember, like on the form, it's like, are you a male that has engaged in sexual encounters with another male after December 6th, 1959? Like it's some erroneous question.
Wow.
So me being a smartass, I just circled yes. Mind you, I hadn't done nothing with nobody, but I just was like, fuck the man. So I went
Yeah.
ahead and put yes.
I
And that
love it.
recruiter, that recruiter said, they're trying to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but as of right now, you can't enlist. So I just stopped following up. So from 10th until 12th grade, I never even paid it much more attention. And then I got an award because I was going to the Marine Corps band. I got an award from the Marine Corps. I thought I was gonna go there, and then I just was like, yeah, that's not happening.
Right.
Oh, that is,
Hmm
listen, I was in while Don't Ask, Don't Tell was active, right? By I think Clinton. And I could say my experience personally, I couldn't live in my authentic space.
Correct.
And it was very uncomfortable. I can't say that that was the reason why I didn't re-enlist the second time, but I can definitely say that that experience during that time was very very uncomfortable for a lot of different reasons. I could say that. I could say that.
I want to ask you one quick question.
Sure.
I see your hair, and your hair is so lovely to me, and it's almost still in regulations. I'm like, I love that. That's kind of like tailored and still like been with you.
Yeah.
Because were you allowed to have your hair like this when you were in?
Absolutely not. Actually, I got a haircut today. And in all honesty, the day that I got my hair locked was the day I got out of the Navy. So it's March
Mm,
2007 in Jacksonville, actually. So
love
no,
that.
it was not in regulations. And so a year prior to that, I did not relax my hair at all. And the reason I did that was because I knew I was preparing that on this day when I get out and I take this uniform off for the last time and not have to get
Period.
up at nobody reveille, it's over. I'm going to get my hair locked. That way I didn't have to worry about anybody saying or challenging me to take my hair. I wasn't doing that. That's just me.
Correct.
But yeah. So yeah, I've had my locks ever since then. I've cut them a few times. They're pretty long now, but yes, I got them the day I got out of the Navy.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Now, believe it or not, I wanted to go in. And I took the ASVAB. I did like you. I was 80, but I only did one part of the test because back
Hmm
then I was a real girl, so I didn't know anything about
A
schools. So
real girl.
I didn't
Period.
part, but I passed the first part. And I was gonna go into it, but I'm still thinking about it. And Navy would be my first choice. One, because I look good in white. Two, because the fact that I wanted to be a chaplain. I wanted to go in
I
because
love
of
that.
the don't ask,
That's
don't
don't tell. Yeah.
that was the reason why I wanted to go in because I'm like, they still because it was a couple who it was a gay couple. They had did a whole post, it was years ago, that they went to go get counseling to the chaplain, and the chaplain was like, we can't support you. And
Ooh.
that was what like I was like, they need help and they need somebody like me. And so,
Right.
I got until I'm age 54 to actually get in because I've been following up. I just got to get these hips down. These hips don't lie, and they don't matter.
Look, there ain't nothing wrong with being
Oh,
a
hips
little
too big.
curvaceous.
No, they didn't like this curvaceous. They're like, man, come back in a little bit. But no, that was one of the reasons for me wanting to go because when I seen that, I'm like, on the spiritual side, people can't get help. On the religious side, they can't get help. Like nobody's there to help them navigate life situations that a heterosexual couple can easily get into.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Such a
was,
valid point.
yeah, and that was my reason. And I wanted to go in as, well, I still do want to retire out in the military as a chaplain.
Mm, that's awesome.
Yeah, my dad was in the Air Force and then he retired Army. So I was in Germany with him when the wall was up. I'm not trying to age myself, but I was over there when the wall was up, when it was legitimately East Germany and West Germany.
I live. You better.
Yeah, so that holds. But going into that, you meant, so how do they are they more accepting to you, given your years of experience, given your take me as I am persona? What do are they open to you? Are they accepting of you?
Um, so I'm gonna give you like cause I'm just gonna give you like the realty, cause I'm glad I'm out of uniform for this.
Yes.
Um, Nobody has been, well, I can't say nobody. One person to my face has been very direct that they just don't agree with me. They don't agree with, any of my lifestyle or whatever they want to say. That's fine. For the most part, everyone has been so supportive to me. And I mean, it's been very unconditional. And I mean, it just feels like I kept going to work. But there was the other part. To this is they already knew. So I kind of pre-warned them. I deployed to Afghanistan in 2016.
Okay.
And I was telling everybody, I was like, because I didn't think Trump was gonna win. So I told everybody when I get back to America, I'm gonna transition. Like, I'm tired of living inauthentically. I'm tired of being a person that I'm not. Like I just really like I'm so uncomfortable with who I am as a person. And I just
Mm-hmm.
need to alleviate that. And then Trump won, and then I will never forget. They wouldn't even let me do drag. A captain came to me and he was gay. He said, "I don't even want you to do drag," because at the time I wanted to start drag. I was 24 at the time, and I said, "I just want to do it because I want to do it. There should be nothing wrong." He said, "But you've already expressed that you're going to transition, and if you've expressed that and you're doing drag like to an undereducated person, they're going to say that you're living your life as a woman and this, that, and the
Oh,
other."
I see.
So
I did.
yeah, so it's a stretch, but they still could make the leap, and all it takes is the wrong commander to, agree to it. So I mean, I've been to tech school. I just came back from Keesler, Mississippi, and that was a whirlwind because none of them met me prior to my
Ah,
transition. They just met me as all tests. Versus, I'm at a reserve base. I've been at my base for literally 11 years now. So these people, I've known them from when they were mid-career and they were at E5. Now they're at E8. They've seen me from E1 to E5. So everyone's super supportive, at least to my face. Of course,
okay.
I've heard rumblings of the people, and I know like three of them. They've come to me privately and they're like, yeah, I had a really tough time accepting it. And I said, why? They're like, well, I've always seen you as a woman, but I just never thought you would do it because I guess I seemed very indecisive. But it wasn't me indecisive. I just wanted to
Right.
keep my damn career. That's what it was.
But I mean, and I take offense to when people say it was hard for me. First of all, it ain't you. Two, you're not gonna shit what I ate. So why does it matter how I present myself or how I show up? It doesn't matter.
Now, I will tell you, like a lot of people don't know, like I do have a little bit of conservative views when it
Mm,
comes to like a lot of my like trans folks,
okay.
and I wouldn't consider myself like a horrible conservative when it comes
Right.
to it. But like me going into politics, trying to make my name that way, I just try to be straight down the middle. And for me, I think the biggest way for me to help my trans sisters and brothers and, non-binary folks
Uh-huh.
is we do have to put a parameter around what being trans means for certain people. And
Okay.
it's not to exclude, because in the same breath that I say, well, if you're going to, change your gender marker, you need to be on estrogen. Well, a lot of people can't afford that. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't have means and the access. They don't have like private ways to get that. So if in one breath I say you need to do this in order to transition, I should also be saying in that same breath, here's how you access this if you need to. And I
Okay.
just don't think that we come from that perspective, because a lot of people just say, well, you need to do this and good luck doing it. And I don't leave people out to dry like that.
Okay, so I can see that, and so it sounds like you're taking more of an advocacy stand and kind of helping guidance to those people who, like you said, are maybe uneducated about how to go about doing things, which is also commendable.
There we go.
All right, so we're live again. So I'll test. I was just about to ask you a question, and for those who are watching us, I apologize. I don't know what happened. Our stream just died on us, but thank God we're back in. And I was just going to ask you, Tess, what about those people who you feel like, or that may feel like we're Americans, we're paying the taxpayers, we pay the salaries of the active duty members and reservists and so on and so forth. And I don't know, they may be in a position where I don't want my dollars to go towards any medical alterations to anyone for whatever reason, right? What would you say to those people who feel that way?
There's a few components to this that I always like to focus on. The
Okay.
first one is whenever you're making let me start with the broadest thing. You're a taxpayer and you're paying your taxes, but you do not have a say in who is able to be selected in the military, or everybody would have an excuse. They would say, "Oh, my son has a chronic illness, but I still want him to be able to join because because I'm a taxpayer." Like, you don't get to make that decision in a normal sense of the circumstance. You pay your taxes so that the government can, make rules and regulations, because they supposedly do all this research and they, vet people, and only 1% of people ever go into the military. And then the other part of that is, I mean, it's a two-part thing. If your argument is you religiously don't believe in trans people or queer people in the military, that's already out of here, because separation of church and state should already abolish that. Like, your religious belief doesn't have impact on practicality and mission efficientness.
Okay.
um because I mean, that is what it is. Like, I really don't care what your religion is. And if you're going off of the medical standpoint, um, I I agree to a sense, but they never have the right agreement with me. They say,
Oh,
well, trans people are they're ineligible for deployment their entire career, and I'm like, no, we're not. I did have a waiver. My waiver expired. It was 1 year to transition, and in that year, I did what I had to do to medically transition. I'm not finished, but in that year, I was like, they do ask you whether or not you feel comfortable, if you can come out of it. And I said, well, yeah, I can come out of it. It's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and, if I want to deploy, I want to deploy, because I think it's important for me as a trans person for me to be going out there. And if they send me to some crazy place, what excuse do they have there? Especially if I make it there and make it back. I did my job. I wasn't a hindrance. I took my hormones. I did everything I was supposed to. Because at that point, we have to acknowledge that it's just more of kind of a stigma that comes with being trans than it is actual, like, an impact on the mission.
gotcha, gotcha. I love that answer.
So let me ask,
Hmm.
how important, especially by you being in the military, being in politics, living your everyday life, being in the face. But when I say in the face of everybody who sees you, whether it's in business, whether it's in meeting, anything like that. How important is it for visibility when it comes down to our transgender community? Reason why I'm
I
asking
think.
this question,
Oh,
real quick. The reason why I'm asking this question because we have some trans friends that don't want to be visible. And
Oh,
so help us understand how important it is for visibility.
good question.
so I believe the most effective thing for trans people, the majority, I should say, is to be invisibly visible, like silently invisible, however you want to phrase it. when you're trans and you walk into the room, you already have everyone's attention, especially if they know it. So you don't have to do anything. Your job is done. You've already established that there are trans people in the military. We exist. The mission is done. Like the next thing that you have to worry about is being a good airman, a good sailor, a good marine, a good soldier. Like that's the next thing. So every trans person is not an advocate. Like I don't mind people at work asking me whatever question under the sun they have because I do consider myself to be an advocate. So ask me questions and I will teach you how to navigate it because all people they're like, I just don't know pronouns and I don't know this and I don't know that. And I'm like, We can work through it. I just need you to like
Right.
because they get anxiety. And the other thing is, you can't tell them that. Like, a lot of them, if you tell them, oh, well, you have anxiety, they're like, I'm not mentally deficient. And I'm like, that's not what that is. Everyone gets
Right.
anxiety and it's new. It's new for you. So there's a lot that goes into the conversation of, you're fine, we're fine, I exist. And it's not every trans person responsibility to be visible. Sometimes for someone like me that's visible, all I need is a text message. And when I'm not in the room, if you have passing privilege, if they don't know about you, or if you're on the cool side of things, when I'm not in the room and they talk about me in a certain way, you don't have to defend me. You don't have to say too much. But at the end of the day, you should reinforce the fact that, hey, they're obviously meeting mission requirements. They're obviously here, of their own volition. So, as
Mhm.
much as you may not like them being here, we all signed up for the military voluntarily. Nobody was drafted, nobody was forced. And there are a lot of people who could serve who have chosen not to. And that's not a bad thing. That's completely your right as an American citizen. But for someone to elect to be here and sign a blank check all the way up into the value of their life towards to the government of all places, I think that by itself does demand like at least a certain level of respect, at least the bare minimum.
I agree. And so you're in Florida
Hmm.
and you're in politics in Florida. In Florida.
In Florida.
Let's talk about it.
Navigate us through that. I know what it's like in Florida. Born and raised. I was born in Fort Walton Beach, Eglin Air Force Base, but I was raised in Jacksonville. So I know life in Florida being black. I know life in Florida being gay. I know life in Florida. So
Period.
navigate that with us when it comes down to politics because we know Florida is a red state. We know that what's the man that's fighting Disney? He mad at Disney World.
Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, he mad at Disney World. So
Yeah.
now us through that. Like, what are the struggles? Not only what are the wins? What are the struggles? And how can we support you in your effort in winning Florida?
Absolutely.
Because I'm still
Um,
registered to vote there. Just FYI.
Period. Here I want people to honestly align with my views. And this is I like to sit around like extremely conservative people because they like to like try to trigger me. And
Mhm.
one thing that we both kind of can agree on is there's the bathroom ban here in Florida, and I've been using the women's restroom. Now, mind you, I'm guilty. I used to be a self IDer. I would self ID and I would go into the restroom. And mind you, this was about like, a few months before I started transitioning. But I was like, well, baby, I'm fish. Baby, I put my beat on, I'm fish. I'm walking in the
Mm.
bathroom and you couldn't tell me
Yeah.
nothing. So that was kind of my thing. But then I thought about it and I thought, how insensitive of me to go into this space that is designated for women. And I said, even though, I haven't transitioned to be the woman that, I am, I do have to provide them with that amount of decent respect. So when I'm around like extremely conservative people and they're like, well, we don't want men inside the women's restroom, like, I look at them and I'm like, I agree with you very much. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I don't want a man inside of the women's restroom, just like my sister who's cisgender doesn't want a woman inside or a man inside the women's restroom. And then
Right.
he looks at me and he's like, but you're a man. And I'm like, no, no, no. That's not how that works. You don't want men in there. If you're afraid of someone waking up as a cisgendered man today and putting on a wig and going into the restroom, I too do have an issue with that as a trans woman because that heat comes back onto my community. So even though they don't like the policy, one of my like first policies is you have to use the bathroom until we get non-gendered bathrooms, because
Okay.
that's my ultimate goal. No bathroom should be gendered because we're literally not going in there. There are a few exceptions, but that's what stalls are for. Cisgendered women, they do go through miscarriages, other things, and a lot of women have had to do that, unfortunately, in the restroom. So it
Mhm.
is important to give people their privacy inside there, but that's what stalls are for. And the safety of women is always on my mind. So I'm like, I do agree that men shouldn't be inside of these women's spaces under the context that we have a gender restroom. Ultimately, but if I was to win in 2026, 2028 is the deadline that I would give businesses to just convert all their bathrooms, and a lot of businesses have done it already. And they haven't really put up too much of a fight. These small mom and pop shops, they got one bathroom. How much money was it for them to go get a sign that said, non or gender, non-inclusive, or to just take the sign off, which is what one business did. He made a TikTok about it. He literally just took the sign off and then just put bathroom up there.
Right.
I don't think that's difficult.
Yeah.
No, and they don't clean them anyway, so I'm not using them. So I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
mad.
So,
Those, because I'm not.
hmm
Yeah.
So no. So with
So
yeah,
so exactly are you running for?
that
I'm
was my
trying to
point.
run to be the governor, and the reason why I didn't want to start anywhere else is there are so many queer people running for other offices,
Okay.
and I do want to say that I'm right down the middle in politics, and I try to equally piss everyone off. If
Yeah,
if because that's the only way you win. If the left is mad at me, and if the right sees that, they're like, okay, she's trying to at least be down the middle, and people can respect a down the middle person where they're like, I'm gonna take an idea from you, I'm gonna take an idea from you, we're gonna merge them together. You don't get everything you want, you don't get everything you want, but I took your most important thing and your most important thing, and we're right down the middle. And we
right.
can build on that. We can have conversations about that. But at the current moment, if you're that pissed off about it, let's bring it back to the floor and let's do our jobs. Because I think
Right.
that's how you get actual change.
I love that.
Come on, Shirley Chisholm. It's the
I
audacity.
love that. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So another thing that I heard you mention on your live, on your TikTok live, gender identity for youth, right? And puberty blockers, and your stance on when young adults or teens or young people uh come to a point in life where they feel like they're not in the right body. What are your thoughts and your perspective about that?
Um, I think it's more of a mindset. Again, just trying to be right down the middle.
Sure.
When I first started to transition, I was 29. I'm 30 now because I've only been transitioning a year and some change. So I started later in life,
Hmm.
much later than a lot of folks. There was the whole Trump ban with the transgenders. There was just the fear of being trans in the military very early into my career that prevented me. So it took up until 29 for me to have the courage to transition. When I
Mm,
think back to 12-year-old me, I originally wanted the sky to be the limit for that young person. I wanted
Hmm.
them to be able to do whatever they needed to do to feel exactly how they wanted to identify, to get the healthcare that they needed. However, there are parameters because I'm not a parent. I don't understand what it's like to be a cisgendered, mom, dad. My child comes to me and they're trans, because now this is an entirely different community that I have to get schooled up on. Something that I'm 30, I'm, 35. I've never dealt with, even met a trans person, let alone, know how to raise one. So initially I thought, these minors should be able to get whatever they needed, if it was surgery, if it was hormones, if it was whatever it was. But then again, I started listening to parents and just kind of, they kind of wore me down. And it wasn't just the conservative parents, it was also some of the liberal parents that are a little bit more moderate. So when it comes to children, puberty blockers, I'm 101% on board for, because if we can stave off puberty, for instance, I have an Adam's apple. Had I started puberty blockers at 12, it would have given me the time to really have a discussion with my doctors, have a discussion with my parents, and really say, this is what I want. This is how I'm going to live my life as an adult. And I don't want irreversible side effects. I don't want surgery later in life. I would much rather not go through the puberty that is going to irreversibly change me into a person that I'm not going to identify with. And I think puberty blockers are okay. Now, people are going to combat that and say, they have negative side effects. They do, but after you're on them for 4 to 5 years. So there's always that little, thing at the end where it's 4 to 5 years. So let's say you start puberty at 12. By
Mm-hmm.
the time you're 14, you know whether you want to start HRT or not. You know if this is going to be what you're going to want to go through, put your body through. So at 14, you're going to start taking HRT. 14 to 16, you're socially transitioning, your body's changing, you're going through the correct version of puberty that aligns with your gender identity. So you're getting to 16, and from 16 to 18, you've done the hard stuff. You've been on HRT for 2 years. You're 16 years of age. Now, this is the point in your mind where you're like, am I joining the military? Am I going to college? What am I doing? Because this is where I differ from my conservative folks. If a 16-year-old is a junior in high school and they're going into the military, and let's say they're a male to female transition and they're 17 years of age, but they don't want to go through basic training with the original parts from the manufacturer and they want to seek out surgery, I think that's completely okay, because by the time this person hits of age, they're going to be going into the military at, in the correct body, if you will, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
be able to, blend in a lot better. That social anxiety won't be there. So if my timetable is 12 to 14 hormone blockers, 14 to 16 HRT, 16 to 18 still HRT, changing the name, passports, birth certificates, all that. And then, of course, 17 to 18, if you choose to get surgery, that would be appropriate. But at 17, I would hope that your parents would give you that parental consent to have that, surgery as a minor, especially seeing that, hey mom, hey dad, I'm going into the military and this is something that will make me so much more comfortable. I need time to heal. I need time to get it together. The military is going to want all this paperwork. How do I facilitate this, and make it easier? And I really would hope that parents, in the next 5 years or so would be a lot more knowledgeable on how to help trans youth.
Gotcha.
You made this so much easier. One, because I would be honest with you. I think we touched on this a while, and I was a hard no. That as a minor child, I would not give them the space to do that. Will I support them on living the life? Yes. But making medical changes? No, not until they was of age and really settled in. This is what I want. But I didn't know that there were steps that you can take, that it wasn't a hard crossover. And I
Right.
think people with education could
Mm-hmm.
better, with that type of education, will understand, like, listen, we're not going from birth to chop it off. We're
Right.
going from birth, let them develop and identify. Because again, raised in the South, you're a girl or you're a boy.
Right.
Act like a girl, act like a boy. That's how we would, train
Mm-hmm.
in church.
Correct.
That's the way we're trained. We're not trained in our minds and in our culture or in our life in general to allow a child to develop as they need to. We were told this is what you're supposed to do because you're a child. Even though the
Right.
word says train a child in the way they should go, we take that should off of our own experiences, of our own fears, and we try to mold that kid versus allowing them to become, which is hint, I'm gonna throw my book in there. When I grow up, I want to be just like me. And I think with the
Period.
lack of understanding and with the lack of, like what you just explained, it does make the decision harder because it's like, well, I'm looking at it from, oh, well, you're gonna get bullied. No, you have to. It's more socially acceptable now than it was back in '70s.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It's more socially accepted. So the bullying thing, might not be it. Plus, you're gonna know how to fight, so we ain't even got to worry about that.
Thank
Because
you.
yeah, because my cousin, one of my favorite cousins, We call him Bojo because that's his nickname. But he's a transgender. Well, she's a transgender. He don't matter what we call him, he or she. But we knew that
Mm-hmm.
since they're born.
Period.
His body structure, everything said girl, and we accepted it 1,000% regardless. So to know that he can get that support now, even from the type of family that we have, our parents are like, no, that's wrong. No, it's not wrong. And I dare you to say something to him because we'll all go off on you.
Period.
And I think having that family support of understanding that, okay, they're not going from, again, birth to cutoff. They're going for
Right.
birth, identifying with themselves, and you as a parent navigating them through how to identify as himself. If you don't want to be a doctor, I'm not going to force you to be a doctor because I want you to be one. I want you to be you. And I'm going to create the environment for you to be you.
But I will tell you, a lot of this is I did it the wrong way because I'm living this right now. So for me, me and my dad don't have the best relationship at the moment. We had a pretty good relationship up until me transitioning, but it's because I transitioned in silence and I told him nothing.
Mm.
And I think him not being a part of the process really
Mm.
like I talk about it so openly here, and because like I have influence in Florida, a lot of people saw me. So for a friend of his, one, it was messy. He saved one of my videos and sent it to my dad, and he was like, did you know that that this is going on? And my dad, I guess, held on to that. But to give context, I haven't told him this in person, but I've told my siblings. So my dad, when I initially told him I was gay, like he kicked me out the house, and I went and lived in the woods for a month. So when I was 15, that's how I brought in my 16th birthday, because it was the week before I turned 15, and at 16 is me in a tent out in the woods, huffing it. But I had been in the Boy Scouts, so I was just chilling. Like it wasn't really, I don't feel like trauma from that experience. To me, it just was simply, this is something that I'm going through and this too shall pass, like I'm fine. So I will say that me at 15 and then me at 30, I'm definitely not telling you now because I just don't I don't want to have that conversation with you. I just don't feel like I want to involve you until I am just at a better space. And that's kind of why I'm such a fan of the kids taking their time, because as you grow, you got to see it to believe it. So your
Mm-hmm.
12-year-old that was born, male, you're gonna see her develop, and it's gonna give you time as a parent to just watch. You don't even have to say anything.
Right.
Your kids will inform you. They will tell you exactly what's going on, and you're gonna start noticing a lot of things. Like I was telling my sister, I'm like, "Damn, my titties hurt," and she's like, "Yeah, that happens." And I'm like, "Is that a thing? Like, is this a thing for the rest of my life?" And she's like,
For
"Yeah."
the rest of
It,
your life.
for the rest of your life, because I had laughed and I had a pain shoot up, and I said, "What is that?" I said, "Oh my God, like what is going on?" And she's like, "Yeah, this is a normal occurrence." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So when I was going through the changes, I'm like, this is crazy. And I was able to talk to them and kind of bond with them. And the same thing with my mother. So she's the biggest supporter of me now. I wish she would stop, but I also don't wish she would stop. But she's an absolute joy, and to have her in my life now is like I told her, I'm the little girl and I'm still trying to heal her, and to have my mom here along that journey of healing 15-year-old me, the girl, not the boy, the
Yeah.
little girl that was forced to get her hair cut, wear the wrong clothes, go to school, be referred to as he him. Now that I'm living my life in full authenticity, and my mom is using the correct pronouns and cutting bitches if they don't. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
love that.
I'm like, okay, girl, go ahead.
but that is so healthy. It's so healthy. And it's in the right time
Mm-hmm.
because
Hmm.
the thing now, you have so much more maturity with it. And another thing, and I know that we can't take it away, but I'm sorry the fact that you had to have your coming out experience in that manner. When I talk to people about their coming out experience, I had a totally different experience because I didn't care. So I didn't have to get kicked out. I was already gone. So, I didn't
Period.
have experience of a rejection. And I still
Hmm.
don't. I don't care. My life is way better without you than it was with you. So to have that experience and that traumatic experience does help a lot. And do you have any books out like to help young people navigate through that?
I don't. I thought about there. It's a double-edged sword. Like I thought about publishing a book specifically on like childhood traumas for just like queer people, but I don't want to I don't think I could write it in a way because you have to guide people. When you write a book that's about trauma, you're going to be opening that trauma back up, and you
Mm,
have to word it in such a way that as people are reading, you may be opening this trauma back up, but you also have to close it. And you never want to trigger somebody and like go through these books, because there was this one book I bought off TikTok and it started asking me all these spiritual questions, and it made me go down that rabbit hole of who am I spiritually.
Yeah, and
And
shadow work is needed in a
yeah,
lot of situations.
that one, it got me together. And I always thought, I'm like, oh, I don't want to write a book and then there are queer kids out here, because I may write it in a way that I feel helps them, and I might
Mhm.
be out here really disparaging people and kind of bringing up old wounds. So when I'm able to like articulate it a little bit better and like open it and close it in a healthy manner, I'll do it then. But I just don't think I'm at that place where I could do it, at least not
No,
yet.
yeah, this book that I'm talking about, for some reason I keep hearing the mom, I have something to say. And you're helping younger people have that conversation on
yeah.
what it looks like to them. Because what you explained to us is that I identified what's the next step. Puberty blockers. They're not as difficult as it may be. Mom, I got something to say. Then go to the next step. So you're helping guide parents through a child's eye on what transition looks like.
Oh, I probably should.
You're
You know
welcome.
what, Jay, you got to get out of my head because as she was talking, I was thinking that just even having this conversation is really going to help a lot of parents. I'm hoping that it's going to help parents be able to
Mhm.
have the conversation with their kids with things that they may have mentioned or shared or hesitant about sharing because of the reaction or lack thereof from the parent. And right now, just having that little bit of conversation about that progression, and even like you said, Jay, the book, and then all of that is going to help somebody to have the conversation, which is the most one of the most important parts, right? Because we all in some manner need support from our loved ones,
Mhm.
and a lot of times they just don't know how to approach it.
And how to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but it's
go,
taboo.
yeah,
Could you
and it's
Yeah.
like,
imagine being like my mother, she's old school. I don't fault my parents for anything that they did, because let me tell you, it's uncomfortable,
Hmm.
for them. They're sitting there and you're trying to, like, my mom, the only reason she kicked me out, because I went from her house to my daddy house, she thought I was playing in her face. Cause she's like, so what are you telling me? Are you gay? And I'm like, no, but kind
yeah,
of. And with a black mom, that don't fly, because
yeah,
what do you mean, no, kinda? And I was like, well, I'm not gay because like girls are supposed to like boys. And
Gotcha.
if that's what you're telling me, then I'm not gay, but you're also telling me that I'm not who I am. So I really don't know how to answer your question, and that's a good way to piss a black parent off. That's a
that-
great way to piss them off.
Confuse them.
yeah, like gay or straight, pick one.
Correct. And that's kind of where she was thinking. But
Yeah,
me being so young, I just didn't have the vocabulary to say,
Yep.
like, I didn't even know what being trans was at 15, let alone I just knew who I was, how I was feeling. So, yeah, I don't know how to describe this to you, Dorothy. Like, this is just as new to me as it is to you. I don't know how to say
right.
this.
Well, and that's a great point, Tess, because again, a lot of times, because a child doesn't necessarily have the words or the language, they haven't seen that to be able to say that or find a way to say that. And the parents is like you said, they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to respond, but they don't want to necessarily cause further trauma or traumatize a kid. So it's uncomfortable, like you said, on both ends. But the
Mm-hmm.
key point that we're trying to get across here, again, Regal Mindset exists because we're here to utilize this platform to offer education. Right. A lot of times we have these conversations because we want to teach and show the community how to engage in those conversations. What sometimes is uncomfortable is also necessary.
It's also necessary. And it's going to help you in Florida because Florida is all about the school. Even though their schools are raggedy, they're all
Real
about the
raggedy.
real raggedy. And so, but what's going to help you is having that open conversation, being comfortable with it. And while you're promoting the book and people getting a better understanding, they're able to see it and accept it because right now it's a hard no. You're not going to convert my child. You're not going to do this because it's lack of understanding.
Yeah.
And we know people perish for the lack of understanding. So with that being said, if you can help navigate somebody through that conversation, to where they can build relationships back with their children because we can talk about it now. Like I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask you a question because you're a parent. There is something that I don't think I was very upfront with. Now, there are, of course, trans kids out there. We all know it. It is what it is. And I don't think in order to get puberty blockers, you need parental consent. And that's where a lot of people do disagree with me. Um, I believe parental consent is needed for HRT because that is very well, that's a very impactful, is going to have, lasting side effects to a degree. Like, you are physically going to change. And I think that parents should be a part of that. The only reason for me, puberty blockers, is because let's say you're, you're 13 and you're just going through puberty, or we can keep the same timeline and you're 12 and you're like, I just really don't want to go through this version of like puberty. I feel like it's almost appropriate for kids to make that decision, to just not even go through it. And then they have at least 3 years of, Dad, this is how I feel. Mom, this is how I feel. It gives that child extra time to like at least talk to their parents. What you may not like for your 12-year-old, you may not care that your 14-year-old is doing it, because once they show a certain level of, mental acuity, once they kind of are a person, and you're like, well, I can't really stop them. They're about to be grown. Because if you're telling a 12-year-old they can't get puberty blockers, I almost can reason with the parent, because you're like, you're too young to make that decision. But when you're telling a 15-year-old that they can't get HRT, they're 3 years away from being 18. How do you rationalize telling this pre-adult, that they can't make adult decisions, when at the same breath we're also telling them, apply to colleges? Do you want to go to the military? You need
Good
to get a
point.
job. It's a double-edged sword. So are the children not intelligent enough to obtain a job and make lasting, life decisions? Or are they smart enough and becoming adults at the same time, and they're smart enough to make this decision? So that's the only reason why at 12, I think I need to at least give the kids, I need to throw them a bone and be like, listen, I can't go over your parents' head. I can't change you physically, but I can give you time, because time is always of the essence.
Mm.
So I'm gonna give two different perspectives on that as a parent. Yes and no. The yes is we can't even go into the doctor with our child at age 13. So we're already blocked out of certain doctor experiences with your child. That's just it.
Hmm.
So there, but then the no is, if you're not going to if you're going to take away this right from the parent, there should be health professionals that are not partial, that can help have an open conversation, but still allow the child to make the decision, to where they can evaluate if that child is mature enough. Because as a parent, you're not going to always think your child is mature enough until you want
Hmm.
to go out to the club and need them to babysit. Then they're mature enough. But they're not mature enough to make certain decisions. So if you are having a difficulty to where you're not, if the parent decision has to be included, or maybe have not to be included, have a non-partial professional, a therapist, somebody there that can evaluate and say, this child is mature enough to handle this decision. And
Mm.
then at that point it's already there, because then now you're able. But then as a parent, you should be able to create a safe space for your child. They should be able to come and talk to you,
Right.
so you can say, all right, I understand how you feel, this is how I feel, let's make the best decision. Because if you're training a child in the way they should go, you should be their first place of safety. They shouldn't go nowhere else.
Big on that. Here's where I like usually dissent from this argument is if we can trust a 15-year-old with a learner's permit, I think we can entrust them to make bigger decisions. These kids are so smart. I mean, these children are smart these days. I didn't
Mhm.
grow up with no tablet. These kids are growing up with tablets. They know how to use Excel. They know how to use Word. Some of these kids are filing taxes for their parents. That's how extreme this. These kids are smart. So for
You gotta
me,
look at Baltimore,
it,
dear.
huh?
You gonna what's a different ballpark.
Oh,
These
look,
kids
it's a
dumb as
listen, some of these kids are not as fortunate, but a lot of the kids, like the median child, they have access to a computer. Their intelligence is already so much further, and studies prove it. These kids are very smart to be the ages that they are. So for them to have these complexities and understanding, I just feel like it's a disservice to them. We're gonna allow them to because remember they wanted to allow 16-year-olds to vote. I didn't agree with it because my mind was very malleable at 16, and that age range is just too erratic. 18 is fine, but when we talk about a 15-year-old, at that point, that's a mini adult. Like you have to start teaching them to make the better decisions. But if we're gonna say that they're a mini adult, we also have to say they have some form of bodily autonomy. And like you said, at 13, you already, can be excluded. Your child may have you come in, but they can exclude you from certain
Mhm.
things. So as they are growing into this person that they are, and starting to take their health more seriously, they will have like they almost have to have a better sense of self because they're starting to figure out their body. They're like, okay, something's weird here, and I'm just not cool with it or whatever they say. So I get where you're saying yes or no, but the kids are so much smarter these days, and I think if we educate the parents, because the kids know more than I know. They be in here telling me about trans people and the history of trans, and I'm like, why
right.
you know about the history of trans? Let me go pick up a book, while I'm sitting over here undereducated. So yes, no, but that's to be decided. I would seriously tell any parent that had a disagreement with me is come talk to me. I'm not here to persuade you. I'm just here to inform you. Because
Mm.
if you come to me and you say, well, I don't want my 12-year-old transitioning, good, they're not transitioning. They're on puberty blockers. Now they're gonna start puberty when we have to take them off because the medical profession, that doctor is not gonna keep them on puberty blockers for longer than 4 years. At 4 years, they're gonna yank that away. At that point, they're 16, and I hate to say it because it's just a truth. And you can talk to other older trans women. If they don't get it from a doctor, they will get it off the streets.
That is
And
true.
there's other people that get puberty blockers. I mean, the gymnasts, that was a big thing. They was getting puberty blockers being gymnasts. That's why they saw a lot of them so small. So
Yeah,
I mean, we know it exists. I think
correct.
with me, I could say for me personally, I know I create a safe space for my family. So I want to be included in the conversation. One, because I need to be educated. Two, I want to know how to support you through this. Because we said before, everybody don't transition with you just because you decide to transition. And
Yeah.
in order for
Mhm.
to transition with you, not just be an ally, but to be your parent. Because if something interacts with your DNA wrong, I need to know because That's my baby. I need to go give a kidney to. Whatever the
Right.
situation may be, I think it's more. And a lot of people look at it from a superficial perspective. I'm looking at it like our daughter. Our daughter is from a donor. Look at the stars. Everybody knows us know that our daughter is from a donor. So then, with that being said, half of her DNA comes from somebody we don't know. Half of her
Mm,
DNA from her mother. So with that being said, I have to be extremely careful because her blood type is different. I don't know what's going to interact with her. So I'm looking at
Right.
it more from I need to keep her safe because when she get a mosquito bite, she start getting these huge boils. It's crazy. So with
Yeah.
stuff like that and introducing to somebody who don't have the same DNA as I do, I have to be more careful. I don't care if my child want to pop out. I'll be a little upset because she is so beautiful. I would, and she loves to be a princess, and that's what I always wanted. I would be a little
Period.
disappointed. But if she want to come in and be my little son, okay. I'm not going to not because I wanted you that bad. It doesn't matter to me. And I think if more parents are open to that, then they'll be willing and be more open to the transition than it is thinking about how it's going to appear to them and how it's going to look on them and be weighted on them, which makes that child too fearful. Because
mm.
if they go back to the epidemic when they was getting abortions in the back of people's houses, if they would have been
Ooh.
more open to that child getting pregnant, then we wouldn't have had situations where now their uterus don't produce nothing.
Right.
Or you could have your child got pregnant, next thing you know, the baby got dumped somewhere. I think if you'd have been a little bit more open, they would have felt safe to come to you and say, hey, this happened.
Correct. And just, I think, one, you're a lovely parent. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Because out here in Florida, my heart really goes out to the kids like me, and I empathize on both sides. That kid wants to transition. The parent, whether it's religious or whatever reason they don't want the kid to transition, I can respect both sides. But at the same time, just like how that child has a right to their bodily autonomy, maybe not now, but that person is slowly becoming a person. We scream about abortions, and that they're wrong because they have personhood. Well, if they have personhood and if they have rights, where's the power of attorney for you as a parent to have control over their rights? It's just this thing that we automatically assume that parents have. So in the same breath, I'm like, okay, that person has rights. You've allowed them to come this far, so they have a right to, hold off on something that is irreversible. You have a right as a parent to not believe in it, but at some point, somebody's going to lose this battle. And the only thing that I can do in this is the parent has almost complete say so over everything. The only thing I could do is help the child, and the child is the one that needs to help the most. So if
Mhm.
I can give you time to talk to your parent and to really, try to get them on board, then that's the only thing that I can give you, because, I feel like that's the right thing to do.
Right. As
Yeah.
governor, I would ask if once you're in the position of governor, that you think about expanding abolishing gays not being able to adopt because there are so many transgender children in foster care. There's so many gay and lesbian children in foster care that are not being accepted. They're aging out with nowhere to go, no love. They don't have the support to get on any type of medication or any help. And because gays and lesbians are not eligible to adopt in Florida, who house are they going to go to that they're going to be welcome, accepted, and train navigated through life in their true authenticity? So with that being said, I would love for that conversation to be thrown out there because it's like y'all banned us from adopting, but we're the only ones willing to take these kids.
Correct. So I already have a plan for that. What happens is, usually, let's say you foreclose on your home,
Mm,
and a lot of buildings will foreclose. Well, some of the municipalities inside of Florida have the ability to just kick you out pretty much, because after you don't have running water for so long, it becomes uninhabitable. The same power that gives the municipalities those abilities can be used in reverse. I always said one thing that I'm very big about, obviously, is homeless veterans. Love them to pieces. We need to get them off the street. So if the municipalities could acquire some of these businesses, it doesn't have to be big, but each city needs to be acquiring them. There's going to be a tax credit involved for you to one, establish these places, and then once we get folks in there, the VA can come in and supplement that cost because they have the budget. They just need sometimes facilities. In that same breath, we can always do that. We need homes out of the system specifically geared for queer children, not to exclude other children. However, when you talk about a trans child, that is a very difficult thing for a cisgender parent to take on and execute well. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm not saying anything of the sort. I'm not trying to be disparaging, but just the fact of the matter, they are aging out. And if we could have a designated home with career counselors,
Mm,
mental health professionals, with folks for these young queer kids, it helps them navigate. Now, a lot of people are going to say that sounds like some type of conversion camp, that you go in here and you go in gay and you come out trans, or you go in there non-binary and you come out this, or people are going to have weird assumptions about it. And it's really, these kids have already, declared themselves to be in these, spaces. We're just getting a mental health expert to come in here and really sit down and say, so, hey, how are we feeling? What's going on? And really help get that diagnosis, because these trans kids in the system, like I said earlier, they're getting drugs off the street from
yeah.
Mexico. And they're taking these without an endocrinologist, and they're taking the wrong levels, messing up their hormones, and just doing it the incorrect way, the unsafe way. It's the same things with, women's health care. If they can't get it at a hospital, they're gonna get it in the basement. Which one is healthier? Which one is better for that person that can be pregnant? Which is better? So if we really want to go with the personhood defense and always looking out for our fellow citizen, you have to meet them somewhere, because if you don't provide a safe space for them to do it, they're going to do it out there in the streets where it's
Oh,
unsafe and unhealthy, and it puts
right.
them in jeopardy. It puts, especially for human trafficking, being
Mm,
a young trans person out there, and you're going to meet whoever to go get your moans. You'll be blindfolded and you'll be on a plane and you'll be in Yugoslavia 24 hours later, never to be seen again, and that happens all the time. So you know
Florida is real big on control because they still, the doctor can override a young single mother with more than 3 children and give her a and tie her tubes without her permission.
wow. I
So it's a lot of rules that are in place that a lot of people don't pay attention to, don't care about. And then when I said on one of my, it was a while ago, when us LGBT go out there for sweet heat and we out there in Florida and Miami, and I'm like, y'all out there giving all that good tourism money away for somebody, for a state who don't like you, won't
For a
allow you to do
state that don't like you.
that, don't support you at all, but you at sweet heat butt naked. Help me to understand that you for the community. No, you're not.
There, let me tell you. Oh, because I'm gonna have to check out in about 4 minutes. But
yeah.
the big thing that I don't like, and I really want to finish on this, because I've been very quiet, and I was like, I'll take this time to talk on it. There are a lot of conservative trans people out there,
Mm,
believe it or not. A lot of
mhm.
conservative trans people, and they work against us all of the time. Um, I wish that we could all come together, as a community, but I just find it increasingly impossible with some of these folks, because they kind of rough. That's all I'm gonna say. They kind of rough. They real rough around the edges, and they're
Mm.
horrible people. I'm kidding, but I don't know. If I could finish on anything, it's that trans kids exist. You've inspired me to actually write a book, so I'm gonna see what that looks like. Because I do think a lot of parents, given the opportunity to sit down with someone, and mind you, I'm not politically correct, but I don't want to hear no liberal mumbo jumbo from some, guidance counselor, about my kid being trans. I want to be a parent. I want to sit down with them. And if anyone, I want someone that's just authentically going to tell me exactly what's going to happen. And they're not going to try to sugarcoat it to make it sound good. Because I just say it how it is. If you get offended, you get offended.
Right.
And then we can deal with you being offended and kind of pinpoint where that is. But a lot of the times people mm-mm, just say it. People will respect you so much more if you just spit it out.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Hmm.
Well, Tess, thank you again. And like we said at the top of the show, thank you again for your service. Thank you for being so transparent and so forthcoming with your experiences and where you are. Thank you for letting us know that you actually are running for the governor of Florida. And so we will say, vote for Tess. Make sure for our listeners in Florida. Is there a way that our followers or our listeners can follow you on social media platforms? Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So I wish I put my whole name up here. So my first name is Altesse. It's Altesse. You can see it on the screen. And then my last name is Orum. That's Aurum, like just AU. And then think of liquor, rum. So AU rum. So my name's Altesse Orum, and that's me on every social media. So you can find me, reach out. I'm pretty transparent. You can ask almost any question, probably not in a live setting because I go live every day. So I usually only talk to like the regulars of the live that come in, but you can always drop me a DM. I get about, and I don't mean it in a cocky way, I get about 50 to 70 a day, and I just have to sift through them. So if it takes me a while to get to you, I promise I will get there.
And let
Wonderful.
us know how we can support you, how
Yeah,
what we
absolutely.
can advocate for, and how we can make your desire to be governor there. You let us know.
Period. Thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
hope I can come back in about January timeframe because hopefully the website is going to be launched by then, and there'll be much more of a tangible product that people can go to, which outlines my policies and kind of tells people a little bit more about me.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wonderful, wonderful. Well,
Hmm.
we'll definitely put that on our calendars to make sure we reach out to you again. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and press the outro, but thank you all again. Keep a regal mindset, and we will see you guys next week.